Hey everyone, and welcome back to Learn English with Conversations. I'm your host Sam, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. Whether you're tuning in during your morning commute or relaxing at home, we're here to make your English learning journey enjoyable and effective. Today, we have a very special guest with us. She's a passionate language expert who has spent years helping learners navigate the exciting world of English. Please join me in welcoming the incredible Erica.
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here and can't wait to share some valuable insights with all of your listeners. Learning a new language can be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Absolutely, Erica. And today, we're going to dive deep into some fascinating topics, including how to think in English and practical strategies to boost your confidence while speaking. We'll also tackle common obstacles that learners face and share some tips that have worked wonders for many of my students. So, if you're ready to transform your English skills and gain the confidence to express yourself freely, you're in the right place. Grab your headphones, settle in, and let's embark on this exciting journey together.
Ever wish your English could flow like, a river? Smooth, effortless, like you were born speaking it.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, today's deep dive is all about unlocking that fluency.
Yeah.
But not just by learning more English.
Right.
We're talking about learning to actually think in English.
That's it. That's the secret sauce. So many learners, they miss this part.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but full disclosure, my brain feels pretty full already.
Right.
Convince me, why is this such a big deal? Why is thinking in English such a game changer? Can I just translate everything in my head?
Well, imagine this. You're at a party, right?
I like parties.
And every time you want to jump into a conversation, you have to mentally translate from your native language to English.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're having a chat with a friend, but there's a 5-second delay every time you speak.
Painful.
It's slow, it's clunky, it's exhausting.
Yeah, that's a conversation killer for sure.
Exactly. Now imagine that same party, but this time the English words, they just flow. You get what people are saying without that translation step, and your responses, they just come out naturally, no more mental roadblock.
Okay, that sounds amazing. That sounds like a dream, actually. But be honest, how do we actually do that? Feels like I'd have to rewire the circuits in my brain.
Think of it less like rewiring and more like building a new pathway,
Okay.
It takes time, it takes practice. This the good news is you don't need fancy equipment. No brain surgery required.
Okay, that's a relief. So where does this new pathway start? What's the first step, the very first step to thinking in English?
It starts with immersion.
Immersion. Okay.
Immersing yourself in the language as much as possible, even when you're not actively studying.
Okay.
Think of it like this. If you're surrounded by English all the time, your brain has no choice but to start picking it up, using it naturally.
Okay, so how do I surround myself with English?
Yeah.
I don't exactly have an English-speaking family living in my attic.
You don't need them. You don't need them. Start with the things you enjoy. Do you like to read?
I do. I love reading.
Great. Pick up a book in English. Doesn't have to be super challenging, just something you find interesting. Watch movies, TV shows in English, listen to English music, podcasts.
Like this one?
Exactly. See, you're already doing it. The key is to be an active listener, an active reader.
Okay.
Don't just let the words kind of wash over. You really try to understand, to engage with them. If you come across a word you don't know, jot it down, look it up later.
So it's about being curious, being engaged with the language, not just passively consuming it.
You got it. You got it. Another fun trick is to turn your daily life into an English practice zone. Okay? As you go about your day, try to think about what you're doing, but in English.
So instead of thinking I'm making coffee, I would think I am brewing a cup of joe.
Well, you don't have to get that fancy. Making coffee, perfect.
Okay, all right.
The idea is to start narrating your actions, even simple ones like I'm brushing my teeth or I'm walking the dog, but in English.
So even if I'm just talking to myself, it still counts as practice.
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, it's one of the best ways to practice because you don't have to worry about making mistakes or feeling self-conscious.
Oh, that's a relief, because I think my dog is already judging my English skills.
He'll get over it. Don't worry. Trust me, the more you do this, the more natural it'll feel to think in English.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this works, but I gotta be honest, it still feels like a big leap.
Sure.
To go from like thinking about my coffee in English to having a full-blown conversation in English.
It is. It's a journey. Right.
Yeah.
But remember that pathway we talked about?
Uh-huh.
You build it one step at a time.
Okay.
You don't start with a sprint. You start with one step.
Baby steps to fluent thinking.
Yeah.
I like it. I can handle that. Where do we start?
Simple sentences. Simple sentences.
Okay.
Instead of, jumping into the deep end with complex grammar, complex vocabulary, start by thinking simple thoughts,
Okay.
but in English.
Give me an example.
It's sunny today.
Okay.
This song is catchy.
Okay, I can do that.
Or even just like, I'm hungry.
That seems almost too easy, I have to say.
That's the point. We want to make this feel effortless, natural, not like another chore on your to-do list.
Right.
Right. And then as you get comfortable with those simple sentences, then you can gradually increase the complexity.
So instead of just thinking, I'm hungry, I could think, I'm really craving pizza right now.
Exactly. Or I wonder what my friends are up to today, instead of just thinking about friends.
Okay, this is making me want to try something. Okay, besides just thinking in simple sentences, what else can I do to kind of build this thinking in English muscle?
Well, we talked about talking to yourself in English.
Right.
You can level that up too.
Okay.
Have you ever practiced a speech in your head or kind of planned out what you were going to say to someone? Especially before a big presentation at work, I'm running lines in my head all the time.
I'm a master of silent speeches, yeah.
Perfect.
Fluent.
Do that, but in English.
Yeah.
So imagine you're giving a presentation, right?
Okay.
But instead of just, reading from the slides,
Yeah.
you're explaining those ideas in your own words, in English, of course. Or picture yourself having a conversation with a friend.
Yeah.
And practice different ways to express yourself, but in English.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's like having a secret English practice session in my head.
Exactly.
No one can judge my pronunciation up there.
And the more you practice those internal dialogues, the smoother, the more natural your real-life conversations will become.
I'm already feeling more confident. But, okay, I have a confession to make. Sometimes I feel a bit stuck.
Okay.
I know the individual words in English,
Yeah.
but I can't seem to put them together in a way that sounds natural.
It's like you're trying to bake a cake, but you have all the ingredients, but no recipe.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
I'm a terrible baker.
This is where learning English phrases comes in handy.
Okay.
So instead of memorizing individual words,
Yeah.
try learning whole phrases, chunks of language.
Can you give me an example of what you mean?
Absolutely. So instead of memorizing the words I am and tired separately, learn the phrase I'm feeling tired.
Oh, I see. So it's about learning those ready-made building blocks of language.
Exactly.
I can use those without having to stop and think about each individual word.
It's like having those pre-assembled Lego pieces.
Right.
Instead of having to search for each tiny block,
Yeah.
it speeds up the process, makes it much smoother.
So instead of trying to translate word for word in my head, I should be thinking in these ready-made phrases.
You got it. And here's another tip to make those phrases stick. Context is king.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
Yeah.
What does context have to do with thinking in English?
Think about it this way. Have you ever crammed for a test?
Oh, yeah.
By memorizing a bunch of facts
Yeah.
only to forget them the next day?
Oh, all the time. Yes.
It's because those facts weren't connected to anything meaningful.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely had my share of cram sessions that ended in disaster.
Right.
Yeah. It's like my brain just hits the delete button as soon as the test is over.
Exactly. But when you learn new words or phrases in context, you're essentially creating a story or a memory around them, which makes them a lot easier to remember and use.
So instead of just memorizing a word like delicious, I should try to experience it.
Yes.
Really savor a delicious meal and then associate that word with the taste and the experience.
You're catching on quickly. Our brains are wired to remember stories and experiences.
Yeah, that's true.
So why not use that to your advantage when you're learning English?
That's such a good point. I'm definitely going to start paying more attention to the context when I'm learning new words.
Speaking of learning, what about listening?
It's a huge part of language learning. But does it actually play a role in thinking in English?
It does. It does. But here's the thing. It's not enough to just passively listen.
Okay.
When you've got music on in the background while you're doing something else?
Right, yeah.
To really make it work for you, you gotta listen actively.
Active listening.
Okay.
So instead of just letting the sounds watch over me, what can I actively do to,
Give me some of those workout moves for my brain.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, one powerful technique is to ask yourself questions while you're listening.
Okay.
Things like, what's the main point here? Or how would I explain this to someone else?
Okay.
Even if you're just listening to a song, try to figure out, like, what's the story behind the lyrics? What emotions is the singer trying to get across?
So it's about turning listening into a kind of a conversation, even if it's just me talking to myself.
Precisely. Another great technique, it's called shadowing.
Shadowing.
It's like a mental sprint for your language skills.
Okay, shadowing, it sounds kind of mysterious.
Yeah.
Break it down for me. What am I actually doing?
It's simpler than it sounds. You find a recording in English, something you enjoy listening to,
Okay.
and as the speaker's talking, you try to repeat what they're saying simultaneously.
Wow.
Like you're their shadow.
I could see how that would be a workout for sure.
Yeah.
It's like trying to keep up with a really, really fast-talking friend.
Exactly. It might feel challenging at first,
Right.
but stick with it because it does wonders for your pronunciation, your rhythm,
Yeah.
your ability to process spoken English, in real time.
And the best part is no one can hear me messing up.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, from like surrounding ourselves with English to shadowing like a language ninja. But it's all fantastic advice. I have to ask, how do I actually make this a habit?
Right.
Life gets busy,
Sure.
and I know how easy it is to fall back on old habits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Consistency is key.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game when it comes to language learning. But don't worry, it doesn't have to be an uphill battle. One of the best ways to make something a habit is to set small, achievable goals.
So instead of trying to overhaul my entire life and think in English 24/7, I should start smaller.
Exactly. Start with maybe like a 5-minute chunk of your day
Okay.
where you just commit to thinking in English.
Mhm.
Maybe it's while you're brushing your teeth in the morning or while you're commuting or even waiting for your coffee to brew.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah, it's not about making this drastic change overnight. It's about those small but consistent steps that eventually add up.
You got it. And don't be afraid to get creative. Think about situations where you can challenge yourself to think in English.
Like what? Give me some inspiration.
Okay, so imagine you're ordering food at a restaurant, right?
Okay, yeah.
Instead of just reading the menu, try to construct your order in your head
Okay.
in English before you even say a word.
Oh, I like that. It's like giving myself a pop quiz before I order my pizza. What else?
Maybe you're walking down the street and you see something interesting. Try to describe it to yourself
Okay.
in English, using as much detail as possible. Or, if you're feeling really adventurous,
Okay.
try having a full-blown conversation with yourself in English,
I love it.
complete with different voices, different opinions.
Okay, I might get some weird looks on the bus if I do that, but I love it. I love it. The more that I can incorporate English into my everyday life, the more natural it becomes.
Exactly, exactly. And remember, this journey to fluency, it's not always going to be smooth sailing.
Right.
You're going to make mistakes,
Oh, yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah. It's so easy to get discouraged when you stumble or when you make a mistake,
Sure.
especially when you're trying to rewire your brain like this.
Embrace those oops moments. Mistakes aren't failures. They're just proof that you're learning, you're growing. The most important thing is to keep practicing, keep experimenting, and never be afraid to sound a little silly along the way.
I feel like we should print that on a t-shirt. Never be afraid to sound a little silly.
I'd wear it.
This has been so insightful. I never realized how much power I have over my own learning process,
Right.
It's not just about textbooks and grammar rules. It's about training my mind to think in English.
That's the beauty of language learning. It's a journey of self-discovery. You're not just learning a new language, you're discovering new ways to express yourself, to connect with the world, and to expand your horizons.
And to think.
Yeah.
It all starts with a single thought in English.
Exactly. Now go out there and start thinking, speaking, and even dreaming in English.
This has been incredible. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today and sharing these incredible insights.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, remember, you are all capable of achieving fluency.
Here, here.
It's not magic, it's mindset. Start small, be consistent, and most importantly, have fun with it. The world of fluent English is waiting.